Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of Winning the Margins podcast with me, your host, Gabriel Rocha. And today I am joined by world-renowned sports psychologist, Dr. Kiko Suarez. Dr. Kiko has been instrumental in my growth as a budding sports psychology practitioner over the last few months. He has been someone who I greatly look up to, especially in the space of bodybuilding, as he works with tons of bodybuilders and he's kind of setting the standard for, what good sports psychology coaching looks like. He has worked with Olympic athletes, professional athletes at the highest level. So I am really excited to just sit down, pick his brain, and have a really in-depth conversation about what it means to win the mental game. So, Dr. Kiko, where can people find you on social media? Where can they hire you out, etc.?
I hope that they find me in your podcast. How's that? So listen, yeah, I'm gonna leave it out there. It's in Instagram is at TheRealDrKiko, DrKiko, and then it's DK at drkiko.com. But more importantly, I want to give you some accolades because you are the only person that I know that has the energy to do a million things out of passion with a lot of professionalism and from a I don't know how many miles away, I don't know how many time zones. So I really appreciate you, Gabriel. You are doing great. I love the fact that you started this podcast. I love the fact the more you say I got more clients, I love it because this is what this type of sport needs, right? It's this kind of support for mental performance. And even though you give me a lot of accolades back to you, it's just this idea of just bringing new things and helping these athletes get at their top. So love it, love what you're doing.
Man, thank you. I appreciate that. But let's get right into it, right? So after spending some time, doing some research, I also saw that you got the opportunity to do a TED Talk called The Inner E, where it really talks about identity. And so over the years of working in the field of sports psych, what have you learned about identity in performance and how can you use identity as a lever to enhance?
Well, that's a great point. And in probably in your ins and outs with athletes yourself, you've seen that, and we're talking bodybuilding, right? So in particular in bodybuilding, there's such an incredible, I'll say, challenge because the body is the sport. And so when it comes down to identity, there's such an blurred lines between who you are versus who you are as an athlete. And in other sports, I'm not saying that in other sports it's easier, right? Because in my career I spent time in Formula One and basketball and soccer and many other sports. And at some point in time, the athlete identifies with the sport itself, but the detachment from your athletic performance is, let's say, more natural, right? I like to tell the athletes that you have multiple hats, and in this particular sport is very, very difficult, especially because it's so systematic and so. It's also, I'm gonna use the word performing art. I don't know if I'm gonna be criticized for it or not, but that is another element of identity that comes with this, right? And so you have to be very grounded as an individual to do something like this and not get confused with this is who I am, right? What I see on Instagram and the last post and the last result. So to me, the work on identity is critically important. You have to really have an inner circle that protects your real identity, the real you. You have to learn how to be reflective. In life, we rush too much and we focus a lot on, I'm sure that we're going to talk about outcomes and process, right? But we focus a lot about the results and the outcomes and all that. And that is super confusing for identity purposes. So it's a lot better to say, who are you? Who am I? And repeat that question from time to time to just detach yourself from your athletic performance. I'm Again, I'm not saying athletes at any level are necessarily confused, but in this particular arena, it's a heck of a challenge, precisely because the body is the sport. And I don't know, I'm pretty sure that you found the same thing, right? When it comes down to identity in this space.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I have seen in the different avenues that I've worked in as well, such as being a military contractor, working with fighter pilots, working with bodybuilders, because like you said, there is that mind to body problem that I think a lot of bodybuilders have to overcome, where I am my my beliefs, I am my morals, I am my values and what I uphold. I am not just, what this physique looks like on any given day or even in any given moment, because I think that a lot of athletes they'll attach their sense of identity to, how do I look in the morning before I take check-ins? Or how
Right.
do I look at the end of the night after I've had a full day of eating and a gallon or a gallon and a half of water. And so it's being able to detach what your sense of identity is from what you look like in a given moment. So how do
Right.
you work with athletes to help them view themselves objectively rather than subjectively in a transient moment that is going to change?
Right. Well, I ask a lot of questions, so probably they're bored to death with me asking questions. But the something you said that I think is important is, um, you're detaching yourself from a given moment, from a given performance, right? And I'm okay with the athlete saying, I'm a hard worker because that's identity.
Yeah.
But it's not okay if you start just now creating that story of I failed or right? So I ask a lot of questions. If I hear that they are in a session, they are coming to some conclusion, then probably I just kind of bring them back and ask them things, right? So if I'm working on identity, then I would say, well, but tell me about what is it that you value most, right?
Mm,
And the other thing that I would say, Gabriel, that I heard you saying, and that's why I mean you and I are going to probably agree on many things,
mhm.
is that precisely because life is multidimensional, when we enter in conversations, you've been trying to help people define mental performance, and I love it. But I think that we do a lot of life management too, right? We help athletes understand how life interferes with their persona, and then all of a sudden it challenges their values. So you have to be really well grounded on what your values are.
Mhm.
I also found fascinating. I know I'm changing subjects, but I'm as excited as you are that in this particular world of, let's say, the fitness industry, whether this is something to be criticized or cheered, many of those become coaches at the same time,
Mhm.
right? In some cases, very quickly, in some cases, not, whatever the case is. But then, as a coach, then now you have to start understanding things like identity.
Yeah.
And and the fact that you did it one way doesn't mean that your clients will do it that way. And
Mhm.
that's what I find sometimes, that our job is to also be a support to the coaches
Yeah.
in whatever stage of growth they are as coaches, whether they are very advanced coaches or beginning coaches, in if they cannot deal with the situation, that we can come and ask those questions. Because I'm pretty sure in your case is the same, but in my case, the sessions are like this,
Yeah.
right? We you probably do the same, right? You do live sessions.
Yep.
And in a live session, you can ask questions and you can go back and try to understand things. And I always tell people what you said the other day when you were defining mental performance, that we are not going to do clinical therapy, right? We
Hmm.
are not going to go back to your roots when you were a kid and all that. We
Right.
are thinking more about performance and goals. But yeah, we might ask questions that have to do with life, right? What bothers you the most, right?
Hmm.
And then I ask you, what are your pet peeves? And you say, oh, I really don't like things that are out of order.
Yeah.
And I say, well, so what if your spouse moves things, right? And we know this is such a picky sport, right?
Yeah.
So routine and so systematic that for some people, those pet peeves actually as a flare of, oh my God, I can't stand it.
Yeah.
So anyway, identity is super important and being grounded is critical. Then the tools are the tools, right? Whether you ask them to journal or you, whatever it is, different tools. But truth is, if they cannot detach themselves, if they cannot switch hats, they're gonna be in super trouble.
Absolutely. And I think that is one of the bigger issues that I see recurring from bodybuilding is that because bodybuilding is so all-encompassing, it requires your attention all day, every day, whether it comes to, energy management, whether it comes to recovery, eating your meals, it takes attention 24 hours a day. Everything that you are doing, if you want to be a high-level bodybuilder, needs to get filtered through the lens of, is this going to make me better at bodybuilding? And another aspect of that is I see a lot of clients that I work with, and even just athletes in general, that find it hard to do things that don't make them better in bodybuilding. And
Mhm.
they don't know how to detach from the pursuit of bodybuilding because bodybuilding rewards you for working very, very hard. So anything short of working very hard feels like you are leaving progress on the table. And that's one thing that I try to teach all of my clients how to do effectively is can not only can you press down on that gas pedal, but do you know how to use your brake? Right? When we talk
Right.
about like
Yeah.
Formula One drivers, the fastest Formula One driver isn't who can hold down the gas pedal the hardest for the longest amount of time. It's who can brake effectively, who can get around the corners most effectively. And a
Yeah.
big part of that is, if you internalize your identity as I am a hard worker, and you do anything that is short of working hard, such as relaxing, well, then it feels like it is an attack on your identity or you are not
Right.
upholding your identity. And so part of my job is trying to ensure that my clients are able to reframe those moments of rest and relaxation as not a deviation from the process, but as a feature of the process. You can only be a good bodybuilder as well as you can recover. And that also means using your language effectively. And so if you are inaccurately expressing what you are doing or what you are feeling, then you can't actually get to the root of fixing any of those issues, right?
Yeah. I just had one of those cases with a professional boxer, and um, probably you found the same thing when there's a comeback, right? So there's an athlete that's been out for a while and they come back. They question their commitment a lot, right? It's like, okay, am I doing the same thing that I used to do and all this hard work and all that? And so I came out with a phrase that I use a lot, which is honest work deserves honest recovery. So
Hmm.
when I was talking to this guy, I said, if you do honest work, and I mean, you go to the gym, you do your shadow boxing, you do all the rounds that you have to do, right? It depends on the level you're in. And in bodybuilding is the same. You have to do the work honestly.
Yeah.
But if you do honest work and if there's no honest recovery, then the next time you're going to try to do honest work, it's not there.
Hmm.
And then you're gonna start cheating on the work, right?
Yep.
And it's not honest anymore.
Right.
So I think it's what you're saying is very, very important. And I'm glad that you're helping athletes that way. It's critical, especially in this sport slash performance art.
Yeah. And I love what you said there about honest work demanding honest recovery, because again, the recovery is a feature of the process. And when we talk about the process, I think a lot of people confuse outcomes as the main focus of that process. But if you can truly immerse yourself in just the doing of the task and, stacking up those bricks on a daily basis, that's where you give yourself the best opportunity to achieve that outcome. But I think a lot of people they view those outcomes as an expectation where if I do this work, then I should get this specific outcome. And you're not promised an outcome, but you are promised the work.
Right,
And
right.
as long as you can uphold that, then you give yourself the best opportunity.
Yeah. Something that, and I'm sure we're going to talk about these things also, but something that I've found that I've been learning in my career is um, you say there's an intervention. Let's use the word intervention to improve something, right? I work a lot on um, the required mental states under pressure because pressure basically changes cognition, right?
Hmm.
People think one way, pressure makes you think differently. And you probably heard me saying that I don't believe in the word mindset because it
Hmm.
sounds like there's only one.
Yeah.
And I believe in different mental states, so different sets of the mind that you
Yeah.
need along the journey.
Right.
So um, in this context, I like to learn from the athletes if they are developing in a developing state for a capability versus in a already developed, they know how to do it, but somehow is locked, right?
Mhm.
So say for example, we're talking about identity and we say and we talk about recovery, right? So let's assume you know how to recover, but there's all these interferences that you intellectually know that you need to recover, but you can't, man.
Hmm.
You need to do two more hours of cardio or whatever that is. And it's like you have the coach has the conversation because we know the coaches are good coaches and they tell them don't do more cardio,
Yeah.
but they do. And so you say, okay, is this an athlete in development, relatively new or with a little bit of experience? Because then the intervention is more developmental, right? You have to
Right.
learn how to contain your hunger, right?
Hmm.
And there are drills for that. But then in some of the cases, man, they are really elite level athletes and still pressure creates a lock. And so I've been very intrigued. This has been my work in the last few couple of years. Is this idea that pressure creates locks to capabilities that you have already developed. So it's not that they don't know they have to contain their hunger. They know.
Right.
They know perfectly. They have had 20 preps without any problem. And one day, in one prep, they binge.
Hmm.
Not only they binge once, but they binge a series of times. Of course, you have to tell them that a decision after decision becomes a sequence, and that chain can lead you to disaster, right? So the sooner you create the intervention, the better. But the intervention for an experienced athlete is is what I call a key to unlock the capability. And sometimes it's short. How many times you've given like, learn how to breathe or do some self-talk and move to the next, I call it the next clean act, right?
Yeah.
So all right, talk to yourself. Gabriel, breathe. And you do a special breathing, right? 3, 2, 6. And then it's like, okay, now I'm back. What is my next clean act?
Yep.
That type of intervention is like a key to unlock the lock that pressure has put on you for whatever reason. But you already know how to contain hunger.
Hmm.
That's the most fascinating thing for me in mental performance is you have all these developmental stages where people need to learn, I don't know, how to have decision discipline or how to, deal with self-doubt. And they learn all those things. But at some point in time, pressure changes that. It's
Hmm.
like they don't know anymore or they cannot access it. I talk a lot about accessing the capability, right?
Yeah.
It's like, can they access the capability under this circumstance? And for some reason, I'm so intrigued about new technologies, right? Because I'm pretty sure that the moment you and I start having access to, EEGs and things like that, we'll start to see
Yeah.
how the brain reacts. But for some reason, pressure puts doors in between your capacity to make a decision and deploy a capability
Mhm.
and the actual capability. It's like, whoa, it's locked.
Yeah.
And so I'm super intrigued by it because conversations with the top level athletes is like, really? That's basic stuff. But it happens.
Yeah. And I love the way that you kind of frame that where it feels like it's locked behind a hidden door and you have to find what the key is for you to unlock it. And I find
Exactly.
that, over the years where I've been working with, fighter pilots, it's the same kind of concept where they're getting ready for a check ride and this is a graded ride that they have to go fly. And if they fail it, like this goes on their record and this could
Yep.
potentially hold them back from uh, advancing on to the next stage of their training, or maybe even get them away from being a fighter pilot and they have to go to a different airframe now because the Air Force says you're no longer fit to fly this type of airframe. And so, under duress or perception of pressure,
Yep.
it fogs their ability to recall those skills that they have worked to apply and ingrain over long periods of time. And so it becomes I like to use the analogy of like a lens where it's like,
Yep.
I've got these blue light blocking glasses right now. I'm viewing you through a specific lens, and I view emotions as a lens that can be used to look at different objective realities. So it's like
Right.
if you're in one situation and the emotion you're experiencing is anger, what you're actually seeing and feeling is going to be completely different. It's a different
Yep.
lens than when you are
Yep.
experiencing joy, or if you're experiencing sadness, or if you're experiencing frustration, or through the lens of pressure.
Right.
So, what do you do with your athletes to shift their perception of pressure in a moment, whether it's external or internal? Because I think there are two different types of pressure where it's
Right. Right.
what do
Right.
the fans think? What does the coach think? What are the implications on my career or my sponsors versus I have a standard that I know I can be great, and if I fall short of that standard, I am not who I say I am.
Right. Yeah, well, that is the, $100 million question, right? I wish that I
Yeah.
had a standard answer for every person at every moment. So sometimes you have to dig a little bit.
Right.
And one of the reasons why I don't like necessarily spot interventions, right? The typical, hey, I'm backstage, I need some help. And it's like, I don't know you. Who are you? Right? So knowing the athlete and knowing the coach, because you and I get referrals from coaches that tell you, hey,
Mhm.
this is over my head. I've done this 1,000 times, and this athlete all of a sudden reaches this point where they can't do it anymore. So we get these calls, but I like to get to know the person more because I wish there was something. But the sequence I follow is you do some sort of an assessment,
Mhm.
right? And I've been trying to come up with predictive modeling, right? So
Right.
now I develop an assessment that tries to predict
Yep.
what could happen. And then in this order of thinking, as we're saying, I like to say, okay, what is, say you're in bodybuilding, there's all this periodization, right? There's stages and off season and all that. So in every stage of the season, there are certain mental states that you have to be able to use to do certain things, right?
Mhm.
To deploy a capability. So say, for example, the I have here some notes, and it's like the capability is dietary discipline or trust the process, right? And it's what I ask them questions to try to figure out, do they have it or do they not? Like I told you
Mhm.
before. If they are in development, then the intervention is different than if they already have it but they cannot access it, right? So
Right.
my first thing is always to try to figure out if there's a lock created by pressure, or as you say, perception of pressure. And if there's a lock that is stopping accessing the capability, then I try to unlock it first.
Right.
And my unlock interventions are really short. Breathing, um, thinking about certain things, whatever it is, right? Cues, really short. And by the way, big advice to coaches, short cues, interventions, things to remember are the only thing that an athlete will remember backstage, right?
Right.
If you tell the athlete, okay, remember you have to just put your weight on the left foot and then just raise your arm and then do this, they're not going to do it.
Right.
One thing at a time.
Hmm.
One
Yep.
thing at a time. I insist a lot on that because all of a sudden it's like, okay, yes, there's a lot of things to improve, but the athlete is under pressure. So one thing at a time happens in professional athletes in other sports as well. But then again, if I see that there's a developmental opportunity, then that is something that requires a different type of intervention, right? So say, for example, you can introduce some pressure drills. I remember an athlete that had an issue with stage fright.
Hmm.
And it's an unusual issue sometimes, but sometimes it's not. It depends on the athlete. So super well prepared, amazing package, name comes up, or you're in the line
Hmm.
and you have to go up the stairs and
Yep.
completely frozen,
Yep.
like not remembering the routine type of thing.
Hmm.
And so I saw that there were two things. There was a developmental issue because this person was a female athlete. She didn't have enough experience going up stage, but at the same time, there was this real fear of being on stage.
Hmm.
So I created like a series of interventions, and one of them was pressure drills. So it's like, you know what? Next time you're posing, put heavy metal as loud as you can and put some flashing lights around you,
Yep.
right? A lot of interference and a lot of noise, and see how you react. Because that is what a lot of people think that stage looks like, right?
Yeah.
And so every person is different, but I don't know if I'm answering your question. It's more, to me, is assessing the situation, seeing if it is a developmental issue or
Hmm.
if it is a capability that is hidden and that is locked by pressure. And if it's locked by pressure, I try to unlock it with a small intervention. If it is a developmental thing, then there's some drills that we can practice. Like journaling the day of the competition is not going to help you much, right?
Yeah. No.
So,
Right. And I really like what you said there in terms of like the pressure drills. One of the things that I started implementing, my very first client was a posing coach, and
mm,
one of the biggest mental blocks, and he's talked about it publicly, so I can talk about it as well, is his biggest mental block is as a posing coach, I'm going to be held to a higher standard than the other athletes. And if I show up on stage and my posing is not good, then people are not going to view me as a respected posing coach, right? So we get into the identity aspect of it.
yep, yep,
And so what we tried to do in order to recreate some of that pressure is to make it feel like posing practice and your posing drills are as realistic as possible.
absolutely.
I had him go through and actually record some of the Olympia call outs and the Arnold call outs. And then those call outs were what he would play over his speaker to guide his actual posing rounds. So they'd be doing 3 or 4 rounds at the Olympia and,
Yep,
competitor number, whatever, switch with competitor number blank. And it's like,
yep,
can I hold my composure while people are switching around me? Or if I get called to switch, can I hold my composure getting moved from the middle outside? And I think
hmm,
that's where a lot of people fail to make up the ground is when they start off in the center and they get moved out and you can
hmm,
immediately see that they're wearing it there. Man, I just lost. And so then
yeah,
they
yeah,
start behaving like someone who just lost rather
yeah,
than viewing that as an opportunity to continue to fight and continue to pose harder, not harder, continue to pose to a high standard, because posing harder is not necessarily always the right move either, because then you
Right,
start
right, right.
shaking.
Right, right.
But can you continue to pose well even when there's that interference of, well, the judges just moved me out, right? Or
Yep,
if you get moved from outside in, can you handle your excitement? Because usually when you get moved in, it's, oh man, I'm winning,
yep.
right?
Listen, and I agree with you 100%. This is one of those sports slash performance arts that where they judge the body, so the body is the sport, and all of a sudden you feel judged,
Yeah.
right? It's like they're not judging my performance, they're judging me. And all that identity problem comes up big time, right? So that posing coach is like, they're judging me. No, they're judging your performance. Right? Had a bad day, had a good day. But
Yep.
it's difficult. It's difficult. It's ingrained, right? So I agree with you 100%. The more you can simulate the conditions of competition, which in other sports is absolutely essential.
Hmm.
And you in sports psychology we talk about transfer of skills, right? Skill transfer. So you transfer the skills that they acquire in training, and then you see in competition if they transferred. Well, guess what? If you never play a game, how do you expect me to just score in game under game conditions?
Right.
So simulating the stage, simulating posing as you did, as in real life posing, like you're not gonna just do one round. They're gonna switch you around.
Yeah.
They're gonna move you. They're gonna call you suddenly on again, and they're gonna send you back to the diagonal, and all these things that can happen. And the more uh, I think it's Eileen Gu who says the Olympic in winter.
Mhm.
So young and so talented, man. But I think she reminds people to train as if you are competing and compete as if you're training, right?
Hmm.
So train as if you are competing requires you to train in a very different way,
Yes.
right? In a very different way. The level of commitment, the level, and then compete as if you're training is, I already did it, right?
Hmm.
But it's also true. I have had clients that, for example, say they can assume somehow the hit of being moved to the side or back to the line or whatever, but their attention changes.
Hmm.
So then you have to do some attention drills,
Yep.
right? Tons of people lose attention for whatever reason, right? 35, move to and switch, and 35 is not listening.
Yep.
And that creates a problem. So you're performing. So you have to have attention drills. You have to, so it's not just posing as in contracting your muscles and going through your routine. Is, as you said, is simulating the conditions as closely as possible. Because this sport, even if coaches, how many coaches we know that are really, really good and they bring their athletes to their hotel room and they put a light on and they try to simulate posing, but still incomplete, right?
Hmm.
There's not
Yeah.
a lineup.
Yeah.
They don't tell you go, leave.
Yeah.
Even some posing clinics don't do that. So it's a very difficult sport to simulate. But
Definitely. And I think that that brings up another part of the conversation too, is that a lot of athletes overlook the value of investing in their posing as much as in their training. Because at the end of the day, like competitive bodybuilding, the foundation of it is the training, and you have to build the physique. But when you're on stage, you're not lifting any weights. You're not doing anything that you do in the gym. The only thing that matters is the posing. And so when I see athletes who are, in prep for a show and they're only posing 10 or 15 minutes a day, or they're only doing 3 rounds of posing, it boggles my mind, because that is bodybuilding, right? It's like telling a soccer player, like, hey, we're going to go train today, but you're not actually going to kick a ball. You're only going to kick a ball for
right,
15 minutes and then you're expected to go on the field and play for 90.
right, exactly.
It makes no
Now,
sense to me.
yeah, it's a recipe for disaster. Now, it's also true that because of the specialized nature of all these coaches, you hear coaches saying, the posing coach insists a lot on posing, but if you don't have the package, what are you going to be posing, right?
Hmm.
So it's definitely a combination of all of them. I agree with you. It requires it's a sport and a performance art that requires your attention in multiple dimensions, from your nutrition to your training to how hard you train to how you build your muscles to how it looks under the lights, right? Because that's the other thing. It's like you try to simulate the how your muscles look under certain lights, but when you're on a stage, the judges are down here, you are up there, the
Hmm.
lights are different, and how many competitors you've seen that they're like they look, I mean, probably happened to you, right? Happened to me when I competed. It's like, look at this guy backstage. It's like, oh man, what am I doing, right?
Yep.
It's like, relax, right?
Yep.
The stage is gonna tell. It's not back here.
Yeah.
But it's a the challenge we have in our practice, if you want, in our professional practice, is I like one of your guests said something like they hire us because of results. I think it was Dusty, his name.
Dusty
Uh,
Hanshaw.
yeah, I think he said people are hiring you for results.
Right.
They are hiring us in ours in mental performance for the decisions, for better decisions that lead to results, right?
Hmm.
And so that is interesting because yes, the coach, the main coach, let's say, is the one that is ultimately accountable for results with the athlete and all that. But us is how can we help this athlete make better decisions that will lead to better results? And that is some sort of an intermediate step that for us is fascinating. For other people, is like, why bother? Well, make the wrong choice and you'll see what happens.
Yeah. And like you just said right there too, it's our job is to help athletes make better choices, make better habits, better systems that are going
Mhm.
to lead to those results. Because at the end of the day, the results are a downstream byproduct of a series of choices or habits or systems that you
Yeah.
choose to uphold over a long period of time. Nobody builds a professional level or world-class level physique without doing this for years at a time. And all of those small decisions compound. Are you someone who spends 30 minutes before going to sleep every night scrolling when you could have gotten an extra 30 minutes? And I talk
Yeah.
about that in one of my videos is the compounding effects of those small decisions. 30
Yeah.
minutes a day that you waste either, scrolling when you should be sleeping or, car rotting like people call it these days rather than going in and doing your training. Those add up. 30 minutes a day is 183 hours a year. Would you be a better bodybuilder with 183 more hours a year of rest? Would you be a better bodybuilder with 183 more hours of mindfulness if you do 10 minutes of mindfulness training 3 times a day? Like
Right.
all of
Yeah.
those small decisions and habits make such a large impact.
Yeah. In fact, if people would learn that in high performance sports, in the definition of high performance, the word results doesn't appear.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's the process that will get you to a point where you are competitive and your ability to compete at a certain level might end up delivering a result, right? But I always say, if you want me to tell you whether you're going to have this result or that result, not going to be able to do it. Your coach will not be able to do it.
No.
But I can assure you that if you don't do the work, then you're not going to get the result.
Hmm. Yep.
Right? I mean, the result is going to be, it's a lot easier to predict when it's negative because you didn't do the honest work and the honest recovery, right? Honest work, honest recovery. A lot easier to predict a negative result than a positive result. If you don't put in anything, or if you're just kind of lacking some fundamentals, or you are skipping steps, or you think you can alter the plan better than your coach, then good luck because you will end up in a place that is probably not what you expected. But that is also something, and I wanted to ask you about this idea because a lot of coaches talk about self-sabotage, right?
Hmm.
And self-sabotaging is intentional.
Yes.
So I'm sure you found people that self-sabotage just 2 weeks before.
Hmm.
And a lot of people cannot explain it, right? I have coaches that tell me, why is that possible? Why is this guy keep self-sabotaging?
I have a
Well,
theory.
go ahead. I'd love to hear it.
I think that self-sabotage, because like you said, it is a very intentional practice. It is, I think it's a subconscious manifestation. And what I mean by that is when athletes are uncertain about what an outcome is going to be, they might turn to self-sabotage as a form of control. Because if you can't control the outcome, you self-sabotage in the moment so that way you can subconsciously control the outcome. And also it serves as a defense mechanism
That's
to
it.
then say, well, at least at least if I had control over what I did, then I was able to control what the outcome was. Versus if I gave my best effort and I came up short and I didn't cheat, I didn't self-sabotage, and I still lost, then it serves as a defense mechanism because then you can say, well, maybe I would have won if I didn't do the thing.
Exactly.
And
That's
so
exactly right. That's
and so you're
exactly
able
right.
you're able to redirect the ownership of why you lost to, well, if I had done this better or if I had done this differently, well then maybe I would have won, right? And so you can leave it as an uncertainty in order to cope with the fact that no, you did everything in your power to be the best that you possibly could on that day, and you still came up short and you still weren't good enough. And that
And
is very painful for people to recognize.
right. Yeah. Is this idea that you can judge, right? Judging is the problem
Hmm.
because the judges on stage judge a performance. They're not judging you. And you are judging you. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna fail on purpose, right? Because I'm guaranteed, as you say, I'm in control. I'm gonna fail on purpose. And then I'm gonna say, if I follow the plan, I would probably not failed. But because I just cheated, I failed, right? So there's a logical consequence to my self-sabotage. And it's funny because if you could catch it on time, that's why I'm so obsessed about predicting things, right?
Yeah.
Because if you could catch it on time before they self-sabotage, you would say, wait a minute, are you signing for like losing? Is that what you want to do?
Man.
Like, no, 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 I want to win. So then don't do it.
Yeah.
But they're signing for a guaranteed loss. So then they can say, see, it was a guaranteed loss because I committed all these things. If I didn't do it, maybe I could have won, right?
Hmm.
So the mind is fascinating. That's why you and I are fascinated by it. But for some people, it's like, really? How can you do that?
Yep.
And uh, in some cases, one change in life, one change, one argument with your spouse, or a new baby, or you lost your job, or something like that can actually trigger that,
Hmm.
right? Or a comeback. I was telling you the comebacks are incredibly something to be very careful about. Because in the comebacks, there's all kinds of potential self-sabotaging precisely because I was that very successful guy before, and now I cheated on this. So, see, because of that, I'm not that guy.
Oh.
It's like you could have. But yeah, the mind is fascinating, man.
Yeah, and honestly, like when you say that, the thing that comes to mind immediately is like a Conor McGregor, where
Yeah,
he was on top of the world. He had, $100 million contract from his whiskey, from fighting Floyd Mayweather, and then, he had lived a life of discipline so extreme that it led to him becoming that double champ. But then
hmm
on some level you can recognize like he self-sabotaged and he got into the party drugs and he got into the alcohol, and it's always so fascinating where it's like he's tasted the fruit, he's won at the highest
Yep.
level, he's
Yep.
won the contracts, the sponsorships, right? He has access to anything he wants in the world essentially. I mean, at one point he was literally the biggest athlete in the world, and then at some point he made the intentional decision to, and I start engaging in alcohol or party drugs or staying out late rather than keeping that regimented behavior and discipline. And that's always the thing that's so intriguing to me is like, why?
Yeah. And remember, I told you at the beginning of the conversation that sometimes we end up doing life management.
Yep.
Absolutely 100% critical for athletes, right? Because even in this sport, even if you're not at the elite level, but even if you are, it doesn't matter to me. You have kids, you have spouses, you have lives, you have jobs, you have sponsors. All that is your life. Your life is not just going on stage.
Hmm.
Your life is not only scoring that goal. Your life is not only winning that fight. So if you cannot manage your life the same way that you manage your routine in bodybuilding, then you likely will fail, right?
Hmm.
So how come? And this is something that as humans and as professionals, I've noticed a lot of times. It's like we love to live in borrowed systems, right? Since we are professionals, we take our kids to the school system, we drop them there, and we live the life of the school system. And
Hmm.
then you go to work, and then you live the life of work, right? Those are all borrowed systems. And when
Right.
you ask someone, what is your system? Well, the bodybuilders have their system in
Right.
bodybuilding. But other than that, it's like, what is your system? Well, I brush my teeth and I go to bed. There's no system in their life.
Yeah.
So it's super important that people to start recognizing that life also requires to have your own system and it's not borrowed anymore. So these big athletes, and I have so many cases of those, that they end up getting surrounded by people that know you don't have a system and they steal from you. You know, you have stories of agents and things like that. Create your system. And in this case, for example, with bodybuilders, whatever your place is in the rankings, there's an incredible moment where you can build your life or your life system, which is the off season.
Yep.
It's not off season. A lot of people call it growth season, all that. But in addition to that, it's a phenomenal opportunity to grow your business, establish good relationships with your spouse, you take care of your kids, right? And start creating the systems that then, when you're in campaign mode, as I call it, right? You get into prep, you're in campaign mode. The systems can actually support you because you
Yeah.
establish them, right? Super critical. If you let go and you don't have a system, wait until your prep hits you hard to see how all that in life just kind of collapses. And I
Yeah.
hate to see that, man. I hate to see talent wasted because they didn't think about all these life systems.
Yeah. And I think that's a major issue is when people compromise their systems or their standards for some form of external, what they see as a benefit in that moment. So, you know, I think the outlook on off season a lot of times is, well, now I can live a normal life. And I think
Yeah,
I think I think that's almost a wrongful way to look at it because I view bodybuilding as like you're integrating bodybuilding into real life. Like those relationships should still be strong, whether you're in prep
yep,
or in an off season.
exactly.
How you show up within those relationships might change depending on how hungry or fatigued you are, but at the end of the day, you still need to do your part in upholding your systems and your standards because you're not just a bodybuilder. Like for a lot of the people I work with, you're a husband or a wife, you're a daughter
Exactly,
or a
exactly,
son, you're a mother or
exactly.
a father, you're a friend. And so if you are not supporting the systems that make you a good father or mother, you're not being present with your children or your spouse at the cost of being a good bodybuilder, well, then what are you actually doing? And so when you compromise those systems, you get that cascading effect in every other domain of your life. And so
Yeah,
when,
and prep is terrible. It's gonna test it hard.
yeah, absolutely. It's like it adds another layer of
Absolutely.
resistance to uphold those systems because now you have to do it tired. Now you have to do it hungry. Now you have to
Yeah.
do it under pressure because you have a show in 3 weeks and it's your Olympia debut or your pro debut or it's your first national show or it's your first
Yep.
show ever. Those are perceptions of pressure, layers that you're adding on top of
Yeah.
the difficulty of already doing the difficult things in life.
Yeah. And
Now,
and
when
if
it
your circle doesn't support you during prep, imagine that, right? Because it happens. A lot of people say, okay, well, it's all good. Everybody understands my prep. No, no, they don't. If you
Mhm.
didn't work those life systems, they're gonna come a time when they're gonna put pressure on you instead of supporting you, right? So those support systems need to be with you. And all that is your job.
Yeah.
It's not
And
their job, it's your job.
Yeah, and I'm stealing this from a good friend of mine, Joe Percher, who's a really great coach, and he views the the show, the actual show day, as it's a milestone in a continued prep. I think a
Uh-huh.
lot of athletes view the show as like an end point where now I don't have to conduct myself to the same standard anymore because, well, the show is over. But in reality, the highest level athletes who do take full advantage of their off seasons and their rebound are the ones who are able to maintain that same level of professionalism for 6 to 8 weeks post show and really start nailing that off season to
Yep.
then set them up for that next phase. And I think that if you start viewing the show as kind of like a checkpoint rather than as the finish line, that is what is going to set you up for that next phase. And you then continue to keep those systems and those standards in place where, yeah, the show's over. I'm still not going to have any cheat meals until I'm in a good spot for my body, for my hormones. I'm recovered. I'm still maintaining a certain level of insulin sensitivity and leanness to make sure that I'm actually maximizing this off season.
Right. The other thing is also because a lot of people come to this sport as not necessarily a career option, but as a hobby slash lifestyle thing, right? It's sometimes it's difficult to differentiate, but if you look at any professional sport, there is periodization of the entire season,
Yeah.
right? You may have some vacation, of course, well deserved.
Hmm.
But then comes camp and training and the competitive season and all the things you have to do.
Playoffs.
So, right, all that stuff that has to happen. So, if you are into bodybuilding as a competitive athlete that wants to take it seriously, it's your life and it's you have to periodize it, and there's going to be these times and these times, but every single one of those stages requires something of you. That's why, when I do my check-ins with athletes and all that, yes, I want to know what stage they're in, right? I want to know if they are in off season or not, or peak or whatever. But because the mental states required are different,
Hmm.
but you cannot just let go.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't do it, then what do you want me to do it for you? It's like you have to grow. Well, that's an intentional effort. And sometimes it's probably the worst, the most difficult capability to acquire,
Hmm.
right? So, because growing means getting some fat and all this, and all these fears come out during off season. I have clients that are really amazing at off season. They say it's simple. You eat,
Hmm.
you train, you sleep, right?
Hmm.
Don't
Yep.
complicate your life. Just do
Yeah.
it like that. Then for those that actually make the cut as simple, which are just great athletes,
Right.
and they do honest work and honest recovery, then I work with them on the what I call the four quadrants of life, right? You think health and wealth and relationships, right? So now you can actually look at your life more holistically. To me, the different periods of a season require also maybe prep and peak and competition and all that. It's like a campaign, right?
Hmm.
In campaign mode, that is the priority. Your four quadrants of life are here. Boom, the campaign is up here. It takes precedence now. You better have these things, these four quadrants in order
Hmm.
before you just get into campaign mode,
Yep.
right? Because I guarantee you that you're going to need all that in place. You're going to need your wealth and your health and your relationships and all that to be able to sustain the campaign at the maximum peak performance.
Absolutely. And I think that some of those stressors that come from those four quadrants, such as if you have a partner who's not supportive, right?
Mhm.
Or if you have an unstable financial situation where I don't know how I'm going to pay for my coach this month. I don't know how I'm going to pay for my show or my drugs or my food or whatever it might be. Now you're having to fight battles on multiple fronts, which is why it is
Yep.
so important before you get into prep that all that stuff needs to be squared away at home and at
Yep.
work. So that way you can just worry about fighting that one battle. And that's where the systems are so important to make sure that everything at home is taken care of. Because if not, then it's like, okay, well, our campaign is moving forward, but then I got to go send some troops back to go deal with stuff
Exactly.
at home. And then I gotta wait for
Exactly.
the rations to come forward, and then we continue the campaign up. Then we gotta stop here because we gotta
Yep.
send more troops back to deal with stuff at home. And that's just not an efficient way to go about your campaign. Uh,
100%.
I have a question for you in terms of upholding systems and standards, because bodybuilding is a sport that it relies on a high degree of adherence, almost to a point of perfection.
Mhm.
How do you help people navigate perfectionism?
Hmm. Good question. Um, to me, there's a difference between going all in and being systematic. And then perfectionism is an extreme that affects the other quadrants, right? It's like in my hat as a bodybuilder, I measure to the last gram, right? And I measure to the last meal and I space them correctly and all that, right? But you change your hat, you come from the gym. Yes, you have to just eat your meals and all that. Perfect. But now you are with your spouse, and your spouse moves the bottle from here to here. Perfectionism would be, why did you do that?
Yeah.
And it's like, is that really important? Is that really important to you? So be very careful demanding the level of criticality. This reminds me of the Six Sigma conversation, right? What is critical to quality?
Yeah.
So what are the critical moments in your athletic life that really matter? Because
Right.
moving the bottle from here to here is not important, man.
Yeah.
And but what you're ruining is your circle of support. So perfectionism is taking the systematic way of looking into your sport into other aspects of your life that don't require it.
Mhm.
Right? And that's when you have to just think, okay, when you say perfectionism, tell me, what are you trying to perfect? Well, I really don't like this and this. Tell me more. And then you say, okay, what about driving? Well, when I'm driving, I really like to park like 2 millimeters from the line. Okay, is that important in your athletic performance? No,
No.
but it's important if you want to open the door, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes you just have to be functional enough,
Yeah.
right? To just live through life without necessarily elevating the level of criticality of every aspect of things you do. I
Yeah.
hope it makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And there's this, you're walking a fine line with bodybuilding, because at the end of the day, when you are in prep, there is a standard of adherence that you are expected to have, where it's,
Hmm.
if I have 200 grams of rice in a meal, that doesn't mean I eat 201 grams of rice. It doesn't mean I eat 199 grams of rice. It
Right,
is 200,
right.
which is one of those things where, well, is this perfectionism, or is this the barrier to entry? This is the ante that it takes to perform to this level. Like, if you're going to call yourself a bodybuilder, can you perform to this standard? And I think that a major part of that perfectionistic mindset is, how much stress does this cause you? And is that stress
Great point.
going to degrade your process to the point where, what, if I have 199 grams of rice in a meal, like, am I going to freak out? And it's like,
That's
can I deal with those moments of imperfection with a high degree of flexibility? And that doesn't mean that you
yes,
should be going off your plan or making substitutions that are not on your plan, but understanding that, hey, not everything is going to be perfect. Can I be dynamic with the way I am
right,
approaching those imperfect
right,
moments? Because you and I both know, like, you walk into a gym, I have a specific set of exercises that I'm going to do in a specific order. And then I walk in and I see three kids that are 18 years old that aren't really
right.
taking their training seriously. They're using the machine that I need to use. Well, now I have to wait 20 minutes. Now that pushes my meal back 20 minutes. Oh my God, my meal's 20 minutes late. I'm not going to be a
Right.
good bodybuilder.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
where
And
that's where
then,
perfectionism becomes degrading to the
right.
process.
Right. And I think you're bringing a super important point. I love that you bring this, Gabriel, because this is when it comes down to perfectionism in your art, you need the support of your coaches. The experts in the field will tell you whether 1 gram of rice makes a difference or not. Talk to them
Mhm.
and don't be afraid of it, right? If the coach says, come on, when we say 200 is yes. I mean, I hope that you make 200 grams, but one day you throw an extra thing, it doesn't matter. Try to keep the log of everything you do, right? Document everything you do well, so then we can have a productive conversation. Because in the end, this is about how you look,
Mhm.
right? So it's not how many grams of rice you ate. Yes, it's important. Of course, you have to follow your plan. And by the way, one of those PSAs is don't change anything unless your coach says so.
Yeah.
Right? Refrain from it. That's the number one thing that I keep dealing all the time. And it's
Yeah.
like, breathe. Don't change anything. It's not going to make a difference.
Right.
But but talk to your coach and try to understand where they come from, right? I remember when I started this thing, trying myself, and I was asking the coach, and I said, when you say to zero fat, what do you really mean? Because zero fat doesn't exist. And it's like, no, well, zero fat from direct sources. Ah, I got it, right? So as you learn, and a lot of the elite bodybuilders, they already know what are the margins of error, what are the degrees of freedom they have.
Right.
But the conversation with the coach is the critical aspect of the whole thing because
Yeah.
this is, I want to see how you look. I don't care how you feel. I don't care how much you ate or didn't. Of course I do, but in the end, it's how you look.
Yeah.
And since there's no magic pill to make you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you have to put the work.
Yeah. And that's one of those things too, where it's like I know coaches who uphold a standard where it is to the gram. It's like I don't want you deviating even a gram from the plan. And I think that works for some people. I think that's very effective. It helps to keep that structure in place
Yes.
that can almost relieve pressure. Because if I did everything on the plan that is expected of me, well then on show day, I can't overthink because I couldn't have done anything differently. And so
Right.
it's one of those things where depending on how you internalize what that degree of adherence needs to be is so important. And that's why like talking to your coach is so important because again, I know coaches who coach to the standard of not 1 gram off. And if you are 1 gram off, you are deviating from the plan. You're cheating on the diet.
Right.
And again, for some people, very effective. For
Yeah,
other people, not so effective. And so it comes down to how do you coach, but also how do you need to be coached? And
absolutely.
a big aspect of that in terms of the perfectionism is how long can I adhere to what the actual standard is without deviating?
Right. Well, but to the point of standards, right? Who in this case, right, in the relationship between the coach and the athlete, who is setting the standard? And you say, well, you could argue the coach is setting the standard,
Mhm.
right? And you're following the standard. Now, if you disagree with it, you don't change it. You discuss with the coach because he is the one setting the standard.
Mhm.
So, to what degree you have to adhere with that? Well, it's a contract between the two of you, right? If I say after the fact I cheated, I ate XYZ, the coach will take that into account as data. Now, if you cheat 3 hours before the show, there's going to be some effects versus if you cheat two weeks or 2 months or, you know. So the coach is already counting and compounding all the things.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier for the coach for you not to deviate,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because if I give you step one, two, and three, and you follow them to the T and nothing is changing, I know the method to my madness. I know what to change.
Yep.
But if you start introducing some variables there, it's like, okay, I really, now you're just kind of throwing me off, right? So that's why coaches insist a lot. It's not so much that you have to be super rigid. is that they know their method, and they're asking you not to change it, so they can be as helpful and as useful to your performance as they can, right? That I always tell people, you may eventually come to a moment where you don't like your coach or whatever that is. That's fine, right? But give them a chance to know your body, right? Give them a season if you
Yeah.
want, right? Because it's a trial and error sometimes. Something that works for Johnny doesn't work for Mark. And
Yeah.
so the coaches are also it's in their best interest that you come at your best,
Yeah.
right? So I would never doubt that a coach wants your best. It might be that they were super busy and they were not paying attention to you or whatever. But I'd rather have a coach. I was just talking to a client this morning, and I love, love, love two things. One is that the coach said, "You're not ready."
Yeah.
I love that.
Hmm.
First of all, because it's a great lesson. It's like I'm not the one that is saying that. I'm not judging myself. As in the competitions, you will never be judging yourself. It's the judges that will. In the case of the coach, is your judge until judging day, right? So you have one judge, your coach, that's it.
Yep.
But the second thing is, in this particular case, I love that because it's a young man, and well, I'm 60, so young man is a whole range of ages. But this athlete actually a few months back would have reacted and all that, and now it's like I'm gonna reframe this, right? And it was a big decision. I mean, this guy had to change the tickets, find another competition for a month after, tell everybody that he was not doing it, eat the cost of registration for two
Shame and
shows,
guilt.
right?
Shame and
It was
guilt.
it was a lot of stuff, and yet he was able to reframe it and say, "There's some blessing in disguise here. I'm gonna be better. My coach wants me to be better." Family were saying, "Oh, your coach sucks," and the guy was able to stop all that and say, "No, my coach wants the best." And then taking that ability to choose your own attitude, I was so happy, man. This morning it was like I was just jumping. It was like, man, you made my day,
Yeah.
because that is exactly it was like a lesson on logotherapy, right? It
Yeah.
was to me, it was like, wow, this guy really progressed. And I love it because, again, back to the whole idea, your coach wants the best for you. So never doubt your coach. Develop trust, talk, ask questions. Don't ask questions every moment, because that's distrust. That is
Yeah.
distrust,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
And that's the thing too, is that trust goes both ways. So I love the fact that a coach can have those conversations with an athlete to say, you're not ready, or you know what, you did go off your diet 3 times in the last 3 weeks, and we're 3 weeks out from your show. I cannot, in good faith, put you on that stage. So either I'm pulling you out of prep or we are extending this prep so that way we can mitigate the damage. And I think that
yep,
that is an act of trust and an act of faith to be able to have that conversation with a client, and the client
I
has
agree.
to bear the responsibility that, hey, here's the plan that I gave you. If you're not adhering to this plan, well, then I can't actually serve you as a coach. And
Yeah,
so when you have those conversations, I think it creates that vulnerability to let the athlete know, like, hey, I do have your best interest in mind. And that's why I'm not going to allow you to put yourself on stage with my name as the coach behind this.
right. The other thing you said, you use the word responsibility, and that is a critical aspect of this whole thing, because it's an individual sport, right?
Yeah.
You chose this path. Nobody put you in this path. So you have to own it. And it's sometimes difficult when we make bad choices, right? You and I are helping them to just make good choices. But sometimes they make bad choices. It's better to talk to your coach honestly and transparently. It sucks, man. It really sucks. But don't skip your check-in, right? If you cheated on your meal, tell them it's data for them. They're not going to judge you on that. They're
Yep.
going to say, okay, well, don't cheat next time. Or they're going to tell you, own it. You are going to be the one on stage.
Yeah.
This is your dream, not mine, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, the coach is just putting it on you. It's your responsibility. I'm here to help you, but
Right.
you have to own it, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay. The other thing is important for us to say is in the course of life, we all make sometimes bad choices and bad decisions, bad, whatever that means. And so if you and I exist, is to actually help them sometimes stay the course in making the next good decision, sometimes maybe even a bad one, right?
Mhm.
So neither you or I or the coach, but in our case, in our trade, we are not here to judge you. We are
Yeah.
here to listen to you and then to help you see that a chain of bad decisions is a lot worse than stopping now, reflect on what happened, and then choose the path of what I call the next clean act, right? Just
Right.
reconnect to the chain of things that will lead you back, that put you back on track.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's so many good coaches, and I'm glad that you're interviewing some of them because some of these athletes are so lucky to have good coaches. I love it when there's a coach that they can trust, that is experienced, that can tell them truths like you're not ready.
Yeah. I have one last question for you before we go, because I know we're already well over an hour now. What are your thoughts on this is something that I term as slippage, where we go back to like this idea of perfectionism. And I view slippage as I have a standard that I've upheld to myself. So we'll use that same example, 200 grams of rice.
Right,
Well, today I'm a little bit hungrier, so I'm gonna eat an extra little spoonful. So now it's 212 grams of rice.
right.
I think that that then creates an environment where if you can justify it one time, your ability to justify it the next time becomes easier, and there's less
Yep,
resistance or
yep,
friction to
yep.
engaging in that behavior, which then creates an environment where, okay, now it's easier to slip up a little bit next time. Now it's a little bit
Yep.
easier to slip up next time. And
Yep.
so, how do you walk that fine line between not allowing yourself to slip, but also not being a perfectionist to the point where it is detrimental or degrading to the
Right.
process?
Right. So I use these words, next clean act, because, but there's always something next that returns you to consistency, right? So there's definitely an effect, and I call it this sequence or this change, as you were saying, right? If a decision is bad, and then you can justify it and then you repeat it, it's two bad decisions in a row. That if you can justify then the last one is three bad decisions in a row.
Yeah.
That is something that you need to stop. So if we had a conversation, you probably would tell me, okay, okay, so you binge, tell me about it. So I woke up this morning and I skipped a meal, and all of a sudden I just saw this sweet and I ate it, and then I ate two more cookies, and then I ate three more things, and right. So there was a sequence of events that then eventually you went to bed saying, "Oh shit, I feel horrible." Well, I couldn't stop you from eating the second cookie or the third one because you didn't call me. That's fine.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna give you a tool. I'm gonna give you a tool to stop after the first one or to even stop before that one,
Mhm.
right? So for me, is returning to a clean sequence is choosing the next clean act. And I tell them all the time to my athletes, what is your next clean act? Is sleeping, is eating, is whatever.
Putting down the
Because
phone.
yes, whatever that is, yeah.
Yeah.
So are we humans? Yes, we are. Can we make mistakes? Yes, we can. But you also have to remember that two bad decisions already create a sequence,
Mhm.
right? So if you see you catch yourself making a bad decision, that's when you have to just have some sort of mechanism, some sort of key
Stop.
to stop it.
Yeah.
Exactly. And to me, it's very important that they stop, return back to quote unquote normal, um, go back to their agreed sequence. That's very important in this sport. But thank you, Gabriel. I know that it took you longer than
Yeah.
than you expected, but I appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kiko. That's this is a very high level conversation, I think, in terms of sports psychology. And I think that a lot of people, if they actually stuck around to the end, they're going to get a ton of value from this. It's like, I mean, you've had decades in the field now, and the experience that you bring to just having a conversation like this is untold. So thank you for sitting down and having this conversation with me. I feel like I got better as a practitioner just having this conversation and just, you know, chewing on some of these concepts. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, and I appreciate you. And the field is better because of people like you. So just keep it up, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Winning the Margins podcast from myself, Gabriel Rocha, and our esteemed guest today, Dr. Kiko Suarez. Thanks.
Thank you.